Our guests in the studio this morning. Very happy to have you in the room with us this morning. From Colgate Palm Olive. Susan Munga, very glad to have you in the studio with us today. Karibu Sana to the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, and where you're sitting right now is the hot seat.
Thank you.
It's really good to have you here. Susan, you're the head of sales Kenya for Colgate Palm Olive, and good to have you here with us today. Joining us on video link as well is Nigel Linacre, and I'm going to ask you hopefully that I've not butchered your name this morning, but he'll be able to tell us in just a minute. Susan, if we can just get off on the start with you. Colgate Palm Olive is doing some great things in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just start off with, when we hear Colgate, we think toothpaste.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we're thinking about brushing our teeth. How often do we then make the connection?
And when you think palm olive, you think soap.
When we think palm olive, we think soap. So it's your hygiene things, and then you're not really thinking about jumping over towards anything else. So tell us a little bit about this.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. It's an honor. Mm-hmm. And just to start off, yes, when you think Colgate, you think toothpaste. When you think you hear the name Palmolive, then you think soap. You're right. So the Colgate company full name is actually Colgate Palmolive, and this is coined from the fact that we do have different products within our portfolio. And let me mention, even before I go to what we do have, is that Colgate is considered as one of the most caring companies in the world. And we are, we have a mission as a company to reimagine a healthier future for all people, their pets, and the planet. And I know you're looking at me thinking, pets, where do pets come onto these? We just spoke about a soap, a toothpaste, now we're talking about pets. So I will get into those details. But yes, so we do different things, and we are in more than 200 countries across the world where we do trade and sell all Colgate products. And we have 4 categories. Let me just mention them. Then it will shed some light on why you think more toothpaste than anything else.
Right.
So we do take care of what you call the oral health of every person, So the teeth, the gum, the breath, we fight cavities. And that's what the brand that does that really is a Colgate toothpaste itself. Right? Mm-hmm. And we also have toothbrushes. So they go together, the toothpaste and the toothbrush. We also have mouthwash and floss that also help to take care of your oral care. And then on Palmolive, that's when we cross over to a category which we call personal care. Mm-hmm. And personal care really deals with Palmolive and the Protect soap, which is maybe brands that you have used as Kenyans, because we do have them in the market.
Yep.
And then we have the favorite fabric softener called Stay Soft. It's also part of the Colgate company. Some of the brands, yes.
I had a moment when I've not connected the two because you never really think so. But okay.
I know. Most people don't really think so. But yes, Colgate is more than the toothpaste. Mm-hmm. So we do have the fabric softener. And the 4th category, which might shock you, is a pet. We do take care of our pets, and we have a pet nutrition and a company called Hills under Colgate Palmolive that deals with everything to do with your fur babies, your dogs and cats. Mm. So we are more than toothpaste, and we are in many countries, and yes, we are a global company. Mm. Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, definitely beyond, human care going into animal care, but then I think you've done a lot more. I mean, the last 1.5 months we've been talking about what you as Colgate has done then around the country in terms of providing an invaluable resource, because when I think about opening the tap and not having water run out of it, or doing certain things and not having water. I mean, whoever coined the adage that water is life knew what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. So now here doing an invaluable thing, providing water in communities who, for that would be a dream. How did you even think that this would be something that you could do?
Yeah, so you're right. So we obviously, as a company, do more than selling toothpaste. So let's put the commercial part aside of selling toothpaste and get into really what else we do. So we've been recognized globally for our efforts really in managing our environment or being promoters of environmental sustainability and our community well-being. And that is where exactly this water initiative that you may have had for the last 2 months started from. And let me just mention that the last 2 months is when the campaign in Kenya, we opened it up to media and all that, but it's been running for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
It's actually an initiative that we partnered with Wellboring. I know we do have Nigel on the call, and he will even talk more to it. But we partnered with Wellboring the last 4 years, and really to give clean water and safe water, I may say, to communities around Kenya. So how did this come about? This came about when we looked at our company's purpose on why does Colgate-Palmolive exist. Remember, I mentioned that our main purpose is really to reimagine a healthier future for our people, their pets, and the planet. So this is a planet that we're going to talk about right now, and also our people, where we do then, as a company, decided to commit to providing that safe, clean water, and decided also to save water. And that is how this really came about. The second reason on why we really pushed into this initiative is because of the brand purpose of the Colgate toothpaste brand. Okay, so the toothpaste brand really stands for, we do say actually internally, and that's what we call out, that we do believe that everybody deserves a future they can smile about. And of course, that is coined from the Colgate smile, right? So what then do we need to do to make sure that we give everybody a future they can smile about? We go into our communities, we see the problems that are there in terms of water and environmental sustainability, and as a company, we want to come in and help out and do the most that we can to give everybody a future they can smile about. All right. And then the water initiative, if I can just say, when we look at our global 2025 sustainability strategy, it's 100% aligned. And what do I mean by that? That means that, we believe that we need to sustain the environment and we need to conserve the water, to save the water and conserve the environment around us. So when we looked at the initiative, really, it helps on that. So those are the 3 key things that made us start off the water initiative. You may have had it about 2 months ago, but like I said, it's been there for quite a while.
Right.
Okay. Now, allow me to just dig a little bit into the main reason, as Kenyans, why did we decide we have to act? As Colgate Kenya, why did we say we have to act? We have to go into our communities and offer clean water. So I'll introduce to you a program called Bright Smile, Bright Future. Bright Smile, Bright Future is a program that is owned by Colgate, started in 1991. So what we do with this program is that we go to schools within our communities and we teach kids how to brush their teeth. So we teach them on the how, we teach them on the when. Most people believe, or people believe I only need to brush my teeth when I'm stepping out, maybe for a social event, or when I have a toothache, I need to sort that out by brushing my teeth. But what we do with this program is we go to schools, teach them how to brush their teeth and when to brush their teeth. And of course, the do's and don'ts, don't eat this or eat this, and you will have a good oral health. So when we went into the schools, we faced a few problems. So the first problem was, we go into the school, we want to teach these kids how to brush teeth, but we realize even in that school, there is no water. So we have our toothpaste, we have the brushes, we have the kids, but what do? You cannot brush your teeth without water. For all we know, there's a process to it. And the last step, of course, is rinsing your mouth, right? So we needed to sort that out. So what we did as a company, we are smart people. We decided, guys, let's go get bottled water and come teach these kids how to brush their teeth with the bottled water. But as you can imagine, that is also not sustainable to our environment.
Because what happens tomorrow when you leave?
Exactly.
Yes.
What happens tomorrow when we leave? Not beyond that, the plastic bottle will just be thrown, and it will then become, toxic to our environment, and eventually we'll have so many plastic bottles lying around. So it was not a sustainable solution. So we put that aside and we said, okay, let's go back again to the drawing board. And again, to your point, if these kids, or when these kids go back home, then they still face the same issue of not having water. Remember, as a Colgate employee, I'm telling them, brush in the morning, brush in the evening.
Yes.
But when they go home in the evening, there is no water. So that is still not helping the situation, right? And then it was so sad, actually, and quite touching to me personally, because when you look at these kids and how much they walk to fetch water or to get at least into a water source. Let's not even have the discussion whether the water source is a clean source or not. But for them to get there, they walk kilometers and kilometers to at least get water. And what used to happen is that, of course, by the time they get home from the water source, they've either missed half a day, so they do not attend school. So the future of this kid then is compromised, right? Okay, so let's assume they get the water, they go home, but the water is contaminated. We do know that the water sources nowadays are not as clean as they used to be back in the day. There's a lot of chemicals into the water. And then this water was really a source of waterborne diseases like cholera, typhoid and such. So most children then used to drop out of school. And because they are either sick or they are nursing a sick parent back at home or another sick sibling at home. So school attendance was a problem. And as Colgate, we really believe in offering education for our children, in facilitating to make sure that our children go to school. So all these problems, the first three that I mentioned, and the one that we actually experienced when we went to the ground in our communities, when we were running the Bright Smile, Bright Future program, really gave us a wake-up call. And this was a chance for us as a company to act, a chance for us as a company to do something in sorting out the water issues and helping these children go back to school and help reduce the dropouts, help reduce the waterborne diseases in our community. And then we pose the question, then what do we need to do? And the water campaign was then brought to life in that sense to address all those issues.
It's very difficult to get a story as moving as that one, especially when you know it's actually been actualized and you can see the benefits and the thought process that went into it. You've mapped out the places you would like to have these wells.
Correct.
How many communities in total, not where they are, just the numbers, do you hope to have actually reached at the time when you feel that the campaign has reached the point at which you had planned it to reach? How many communities do you plan to reach?
So, City, right now, I can attest that we have reached at least over 90,000 lives. And I'll explain how that happens, because when we come to your community, for example, and identify that there's a water issue and, come up or team up together with a Wellboring team and we put up a well, that water well services more than the primary school, for example. It services the communities around. So right now, we've impacted over 90,000. And by the end of this year, we are really aiming to at least impact 120,000 people with the wells that we are putting up.
So what exactly do you look for? What sort of communities? What is the criteria? What are the determining factors that make you choose an area and say, this is an area where, yes, they don't have water, but what else?
Yeah, so first things first, we of course identify the community there's no water. That's, when you go in there and you see, they do have a water source somewhere far away from them, and that water source could also be contaminated. Okay? So that's the first thing. So that already is a problem, because either the water is there, it's contaminated, or totally around the community, there is no water source. All right? So once you qualify for that, and sorry to say it's a sad qualification, but once a community qualifies for that,
it's a realistic qualification.
And it's a realistic, exactly. It's real. It's exactly what we face when you go down to these communities, So once we do that, then that's when we bring in Nigel and the team, and that is a Wellboring team, because as Colgate, we are not experts in drilling wells or even in finding out. If I go to a community, all I'll feel is sad and sorry if the issue is there, but I will not know whether there is even a close water source. So Nigel and the team come into this, and then he will do the groundwork, assess whether there's a possibility of a water well, and then he will then say, okay, fine, Colgate team, we are ready for this community, and there's probability we could sink a well, and let's do it.
Okay, so I guess then, no time like the present, then to hear from Nigel. Nigel Linacre is the co-founder of Wellboring. We can't get you on video link, but we can hear you, and maybe to just, step into this conversation to find out How then do we exactly make the connect? But of course, good morning to you, Nigel, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Good morning, Edna. I'm delighted to be here with you. So, as Susan was saying, we work with communities that lack safe water, and then we have to do the groundwork. We have to establish whether there is water around that we can reach by sinking a well. Is that at a reasonable depth? Can we make the drilling happen? And then the other part is we want to really engage with the community so they understand their responsibility, what they can bring to the process, how they'll form a water management committee to look after the water, how they'll engage and share, and then we can move forward together, all being well.
What are some of the, I'm interested to know, because as Susan was saying earlier, you go into a community, you may not be aware of the challenges that they face in terms of accessing water. Obviously, then going into a new initiative, then you find out, hold on a minute, this water is vital to having this thing happen. Do you ever get into a situation, Nigel, whereby, as you say, you do the initial, mapping, and you find that in this place where this resource is so needed, we are not able to then dig a borehole?
Great question, Edna. So we don't know whether there will be water and how deep we'll have to go to get water. So we expect to successfully drill, once we've done our surveying, successfully drill only 9 out of 10 times, only 90% of the time. So sometimes there are problems. We can start with one approach to drilling and then find we're working through granite and we need to switch from mud drilling to air drilling. Occasionally we find that the water itself, way down underground, isn't suitable for drinking, but almost always it is. And of course we rigorously test the quality of the water when we get there. So it's a challenge. Getting water is a challenge, and it won't always succeed.
Nigel, I want to ask this question. It's fascinating to hear what you're doing, but what's the science behind figuring out where water is? Or is it just some voodoo that you guys understand and you're able to work out so that...
Great question. So, to start with fundamentals, rain falls from the sky, most of it goes onto the ground, and most of that seeps down into the ground, into what are called aquifers. 12 years ago, I hadn't heard of an aquifer, but there they are, and they're levels of sand, gravel, and water underground. So when we go into an area to start with, we run a survey with a thermometer, which sends a current down underground, electrical current, and measures the resistivity of that current and gives an indication, therefore, is it rock? Is there water? At that point, we don't know what kind of water and how good it will be, but we can sense where it is. Once we've done 5, 6, 7 wells in an area, we don't need to run the survey every time, because if the land is flat, the aquifer will very probably be flat as well. The key message here is in most of Kenya, there is good water underground at a reasonable depth. So by drilling a well, we can usually get good water up.
And how long does this take? I can imagine a situation where, because if you're entering into a community, the likelihood of them hearing that in the near future there could be water, the anticipation also for them must be something that would be really great to see. So when you come in and begin this project, from the time you do this initial due diligence until the time that there can be some kind of piping and somebody would then have water within a community, what time frame are we looking at?
It's a great question, and it does vary, because we can go into a new area and map out and see what there is and engage with communities with the possibility, and then we have to make an overall plan. How many can we do and in what time scale? But once we've got past our basic planning, the engagement process, the sitting down with community leaders, which our Kenyan team, Wellboring Groundwater, do every time. So it's Kenyan to Kenyan, there we are. It starts with, what are your problems? What are your issues? Where are you getting water from? How far are you having to walk to a seasonal stream, a polluted river? What are the health issues here? If we help to bring water here, how will you manage it? Who will be on the water management committee? And how can we make the best of it? So we're trying to have, and do have, responsible conversations. And they'll run over some days. And then we are into the drilling process itself, which can take as little as 2 days if everything goes well. Then testing the water, off to a government lab to do that. Then back, then finishing it up, which may be another week depending on the work schedule. So the hardcore physical work can be as little as a week. The planning rather longer. And then we don't stop there, Edna, because we come back and do maintenance, service visits to keep our wells operating. And the first well we put in 11 years ago after we formed Wellboring is still running fine. And wells can last, providing they're maintained. And that's another huge issue. So we've now created a film showing people how to service wells to avoid this problem of wells breaking down across the country.
Could you talk a little bit more about that? How you maintain wells, whether the community that well is serving needs to be trained in order to understand how best they can ensure that the well keeps giving them the service, or how it is that well boring goes into the business of ensuring that that well continues doing what it's intended to do. Could you just walk us through that?
Nigel, if I can jump in there, I'm going to ask you to hold on to that, because I'm sure we're going to need some more time to go into that, because we're going to take a break right now. And then we're going to come back after the break and look into that question, really important one that CT has, if you don't mind. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're talking about lives changed because of this partnership between Colgate Palmolive and Wellboring, making water available to many, many Kenyans over the last 4 years and into many more years. It's 29 minutes to the top of the hour. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues this morning, and coming off of that around the country on SpiceFM and of course on KTN Home this morning, and our live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook, and we're taking your comments on Twitter. This morning we're having a very important conversation about the provisions of a very much needed resource that is being made for very close to 100,000 Kenyans so far, and the likelihood of this being made possible for more. We're joined in the studio this morning, Colgate Palmolive, Susan Munga, as well as Nigel Linacre, who's joining us online from London, from Wellboring, telling us about, these great things that have been done around the country so far. And CT, just before we went to the break, you had a question, and I'd like you to ask that to Nigel again.
Well, now that I've had time, I'm going to change the question.
Voila.
A little background. I mean, everything that Nigel speaks of doesn't sound to me like it's a business that they're conducting. It's like they are into providing a service. It's like they're a charitable setup. Nigel, tell us a little bit more about Wellboring, how it began and how the idea came about, and why it is you chose this way of going about your business.
Well, thank you, CT. And as you say, it's not a business. So the history.
Yes.
I wanted to help Kenyan schools. I'd got to know one or two. And I thought I'd probably help by becoming an inspirational teacher or something like that. But when I was in school, I saw the biggest problem was water. And I was running leadership courses, and a couple of engineers said we could fix the water problem at school with a borehole. And I kind of said, what's that? And that was our first project 12 years ago. We formed an NGO in the UK, and Wellboring is now that NGO and an NGO in Kenya, Wellboring Groundwater. Absolutely committed, because here we are having the biggest conversation about what we think of as the biggest single problem. If you're in rural Kenya at a school without safe water, you're likely to fall ill and worse. And it's a huge problem. And it's one we're now committed to fixing. The team outside of Kenya are, including myself, all volunteers. So it's absolutely not a business. And I say to people, I get nothing from Wellboring except for a feeling of connection and purpose and a life well lived.
Maybe it's a question for both of you at this point, because, Susan, when you spoke earlier and you said, well, here Colgate Palmolive was getting into a community and saying, well, in as much as we're selling toothpaste and soap, we also want people to know that where to falls of how to use these things. And then you run into, okay, there's no problem. Did you imagine that you would then be able to say, okay, there's no water, as opposed to using bottled water, let's have a semi-permanent source of water? Did you think, or did the company think at that point, that what you would do essentially was change the lives of many, many people going down the line, whether they were children in school, whether it was families who did not have to go for kilometers to find semi-clean water? Did you imagine that you would be dealing with an education, a hygiene and health, community issue at the same time by sinking a borehole?
To be very honest, no. We never thought that it would scale up to this level. And we thought that at first we were just going to sort out an issue where there was no water in the school and we wanted to give clean access water to these children and the communities. But yet it went now broader. I mean, it's all of a sudden become quite big. And, when we looked at the whole initiative and we looked at who we are as Colgate and what we stand for, then it also spoke to us. It spoke back to what we believe in and what the purpose is for the company. So, and it's quite an honor and actually something that we're very proud of, even to go to these communities, because when Nigel and the team are sinking the boreholes and we are by their side, you can see the joy in these, on the kids' faces, and the impact that you've even had, even over and beyond getting that school kid back to school or back to class. You can even see they use the same water to do irrigation for their crops. So meaning you're even going further and putting a plate of food on the table for these families, So it becomes quite big. It becomes more than the oral hygiene that we were even speaking about, to even changing people's lives as a whole. Yeah.
Colgate doesn't just operate within Kenya. You operate within this region.
Yes, we are.
You see where I'm going with this, huh? All right. Then go ahead of me.
No. You can go.
Yes, I appreciate the fact that work is being done within Kenya, within the country I live in, within my country. Yeah. But other parts of East Africa have similar problems. Let me now make it East and Central Africa. Okay. Does Colgate Palmolive have plans to perhaps, because given how this particular program has expanded, you've had a very clear understanding of what it's doing and what it's achieving and how far-reaching the positive consequences are. So, do you have plans to reach out and go beyond the boundaries of Kenya?
Yes, let me start by saying that yes, Colgate is Palmolive is more than Kenya, of course, in East Africa and Southern Africa. And we do run the Bright Smile, Bright Future program in 12 countries in Africa. And as you can imagine, the similarities in markets in Africa are quite common. What you find here in Kenya is what you might find in Tanzania, the same water issues in the communities in Tanzania. And yes, the teams that are also running their Bright Smile, Bright Future in these countries also come up and tell us the issues are still the same. Excuse me. And so, as a company, we are open to scale up the initiative to more than Kenya, for sure. And we have Nigel and the team who are also still experts who can do that in Africa, in the rest of the markets in Africa. So yes, your question, we are more than happy to scale it up. And we do know that there's a need out there. It's just a matter of time, and we shall find our footing in other African markets as well. Yeah.
Nigel, if you were able to give a footprint of what has been covered in Kenya so far, and what then would be the desire, how much further, what are we looking at? North, south, east, west, central Kenya? What are we looking at in terms of what has been covered so far, and where would you like to go in the future to make sure that more have?
Thanks, Ndu. We're in 7 counties of Kenya. Last year on this program, moving to 8 this year, a number of counties in western Kenya, Kisumu, Kakamega, and others there, right across eastern Kenya in Kwale, and some in between. We'd love to expand further, but also in each county we're in, there remain dozens of schools that don't have safe water. So we tend to cluster. We don't go to an area and do one well. When we go to a county or area, we're going to expect to do a number like 10 or a dozen.
Okay.
Because then we can support them and head towards the question CT answered earlier about how we support maintenance and servicing. So we want to expand the United Nations Social Development Goals, talk about getting safe water to everyone this decade. We would love to be a part of at least getting safe water to every primary school. But we're a long way from that. So we're expanding as fast as we can. And we're really excited about that. And we want to partner. We want everyone who can help to come and join this effort.
If I may ask, Nigel, since you are working in counties and with county governments, what sort of understanding do you have with the county governments that you have found, or where you have actually placed your projects in? Do they have some sort of partnership structure within which you fit in? How do they assist, in short?
Well, that's a great question. Of course, we have to work with the water regulator, the Water Resource Authority, in terms of getting permits. And then our general approach has been simply grassroots, get in there, work with community. And from time to time, we've met with some county governments, and they seem to be at least happy about what we're doing. We'd love to take that to another level, where we do seriously partner. For example, if a county government would say, well, we've got whatever it is, 100 primary schools that lack safe water, would you come and work with us and bring what you can to add to our own effort, maybe bring in third parties as well? We'd love to do exactly what you were talking about, CT, and develop fuller partnerships. It's kind of, you're doing that, Colgate Wellboring, good. We're doing what we're doing. On we go. But yes, taking it forward and really having the full participation of counties would be a great thing. If we're going to fix this, we have to fix it together.
Susan, even to say that, look, these, I mean, from what you've said, these partnerships must continue. This work must go on. And one of the things that we find for people to jump on board, like Nigel has said, one of the things that we find, even as we look at a development, doesn't matter where we are, is that if people can know and see the impact that it has had on lives, they're likely to say, okay, well, I want to be part of this, you know? So what changes have you seen in communities? Take the life of a child. Give us a case study. The life of a child, the life of a community that has changed significantly because of this provision of water in their community.
Yeah. So we do have, and I wish we could even, air it out to the Kenyans just to see, but we do have so many testimonials from these communities, because when we do provide these water sources to these communities, it doesn't stop there. We do visit them again, and we also go to the schools to still continue with the school education, right, or with the oral care education. So we have testimonials. We have situations where these children really could not attend school, and all they used to do is to help with the house chores, but now they are actually in school. And we have communities that even we have mothers who can even attest and speak to it and say, this is the best thing that has ever happened, offering water to the community, because like I said, it helps even with the cooking. It helps with the house, it helps with plants, it helps with the animals. It's bigger than even this one child. So we have testimonials which we can always share, and we do have them even on our website and on our Facebook pages, where every Kenyan who thinks, I want to plug into this, or I want to buy that tube of toothpaste just to help also in this initiative, they can get those testimonials on our websites and our Facebook pages.
Well, I talked about partnerships. Huh?
Yeah.
When you talk about, the number of children who would perhaps miss school for whatever various reasons that are as a result of just poor water provision and also the quality of the water. If you do you have partnerships, say, with the Ministry of Health and Education where you can actually have statistics? Meaning, since this well was put up, the changes that we've seen are, for instance, prior to this project, number of students who dropped out of school or didn't have this was this. The number of people who were unwell because of the poor state of the water or this. But now, with this sort of project, the changes that we have now seen are the following. Do you have partnerships that enable you to have these sort of statistics?
Yeah. We do have very strong partnerships with the Ministry of Health for the simple reason also because we do train their dentists, and we partner with dentists quite a lot, all the way from when they're students to the Ministry of Health. And yes, that is statistics that we can get and even share with the greater Kenyan community on, since we started sinking these wells or offering this solution, these are the number of kids that used to drop out, and it has gone down to this. So we have those. And our partnership actually is quite strong in the sense that we can always get that sort of data and, publish it. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I can add.
Yes, please go ahead, Nigel.
Nigel.
Yeah, so on the ground, we do measure some things that are easy to measure, like the number of children who are enrolled in the school. And that goes up on our latest study by about 10%. Enrollment increases when you put water into a school area. The next thing is attendance of those who are enrolled increases. We've seen the absenteeism rate drop by more than a half when we put safe water in. So you've got this, and the third effect, of course, children aren't then having to be sent out of class. Often girls go and fetch water from a dirty stream. So you've got a triple effect: enrollment, attendance, and staying in class. That, if it weren't for lockdown, would have led to an increase in academic performance in the schools. So we will see a big change there as well. So this is a huge impact on education, and we've got stats. Now that lockdown has gone, we will run another study in the coming months with the larger number of schools we've now reached to see the fuller impact, but it's huge.
One of the things that you've talked about also, Nigel, is SDGs and looking at sustainable resource and looking at sustainable outlets for things like food. Susan mentioned here we have families with, the little, backyard patch kind of thing. Then because water has been provided, we then see that families are able to grow their own food and keep an eye then on, what they grow and then what they eat. In as much as we've seen education clearly has improved because the attendance then has either been maintained or improved upon, have we also seen that in health, because of better sources of food, families are healthier and then reducing the visits that they would have to go to hospital for?
I think that's a great question, and we haven't run that study. But what we can say is that using water to grow crops in schools is something we absolutely encourage. And it's not really part of today's big conversation, but there's going to be a big conversation in the future, I think, about access to food because of the events in the world that are happening now that will affect the supply of food. It's even more important to use the water that we can get to grow what we can locally to protect against very likely the coming problems that we will face in the next year or so on food supply.
Nigel, have you finished saying what you're saying?
I think we may have dropped off Nigel.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to say some more, but anyway. I was waiting for another thought to come to me, but it hadn't.
Okay.
All right. So let me bring the thought to you. In an ideal world with ideal circumstances, what would you consider to be the scenario that would paint the perfect picture of what you'd like to see with the efforts that Wellboring has brought into this campaign and in these projects?
And is that to Susan or me?
Nigel.
Okay, very good. So, our long-term vision is that every child in a primary school gets safe water. That's really what I would love us all to commit to doing what we can to support. I think this idea that we have to live with it, that it's, it's the way that it is. Well, it is the way that it's been. But I think if we work together with great partnerships, as we have with Colgate Palmolive, fantastic partnership, we are making a profound difference, and we just want to scale now. So if we all come in, we want to consign this problem to history. Yes, that's what UN goals are about, but it relies upon real work on the ground. So every one of your listeners who wants to make a difference here, come and make a difference, and let's transform as much of Kenya as we can by bringing safe water.
When will it be enough, Susan? And when will we get to the point where we say, okay, well, you know what? Is it when there is water in every home, where there is water in every school? Is that when we'll say, okay, guys, thank you very much, we are done? Or when will it be enough?
It will not be enough, because we want to go on and on and on. And to your point, yes, if every home, every community can have clean, safe drinking water, and every child is able to attend school, because then they don't have to deal with unsafe water and the issues that come with it, then that is when it shall be enough. When is that? We don't know. As a company, we are trying the best that we can. We are calling upon Kenyans to also come hold hands, and we do the best that we can to sink in these wells, to offer these water solutions so that it can at least end sooner than later. But I can tell you the plan is for us to make sure we see to the end of it. Yeah.
One of the things that is always heartwarming is when you actually see initiatives that meet the needs of people at the point where the needs are most prevalent. Now, when you talk about drilling wells and boreholes, some of these areas are not areas that completely have no rainfall. They have some rainfall.
Yeah.
In addition to simply digging wells, do you also train people to harvest water? Do you, Nigel?
Yeah. No, I can speak to this. So when I started visiting Kenyan schools, I would see in almost all cases that there's some guttering and there's a tank somewhere. So that at some point someone had put in a rainwater harvesting solution.
Right.
And I saw that in almost all cases the guttering was broken. There were problems with the tanks and it wasn't being used. And so my first thought was, let's fix all of these. Let's just fix them. And I was persuaded that that's not a good enough solution. Why is it not good enough? Because although, as you say, there is rainfall, in the rainy seasons, there's usually enough water for a school of 500 people, people living locally. But outside the rainy season, there isn't. So it's going to run down unless you get a super huge tank. And then there are other issues about keeping the water in the tanks clean, keeping the gutters clean. So that debris isn't falling from trees, birds aren't creating a problem, and so on. So the sanitary problems around it are significant. It needs really good maintenance. So I got persuaded, and I'm sure it's right, that with good, clean water underground that we can reach and then seal with a simple pump and a nice tap coming out, that's sustainable, providing we maintain, and it's really, really safe. So that's our absolute focus. And we're getting scale by sticking to that every time.
Thanks for that, Nigel. And, even as we wind down on this conversation, Susan, what can people do today? How can people then contribute towards making this a reality in the future?
Great. So thank you so much, first of all, for giving us this opportunity to even talk to the Kenyans and tell them or show them how we're trying to make a difference as a company. And obviously to any Kenyan who feels they would like to plug in and even want to know more about this initiative, they can find some information on www.wellboring, which is one word, /Colgate and another slash at the end. They click on that website. It should take them straight to exactly the discussion that we've had and even more details, if you may. And even over and above that, there's a drop-down list somewhere on the website where you can actually select and nominate a school or a community that you feel really needs help with having a water solution. So nominate as many schools as possible from back in our communities if you feel that they have that need. What I cannot guarantee, though, is that we will definitely run and sink the well. Yeah. What we will do as a next step is obviously the Wellboring team, Nigel and the team, will go to the ground, assess the viability, the feasibility of sinking a well, and then they will definitely get back to the people who've nominated the schools.
Thank you very much, for joining us in this. Nigel Linacre is the co-founder of Wellboring, and Susan Munga, head of sales Kenya, Colgate Palm Olive. It is 9 o'clock. Thank you for joining us.